Hi, everybody. It's Peter Schiff. This is January 4th on Monday, 2010, the first video blog of the new year. Well, the markets are broadly higher today. The Dow Jones, as I'm recording this with about an hour left to go, is up about 170 points. But everything is up today. Gold is up better than $20 per ounce. Oil is up better than $2 a barrel. We're now at about $81.50, closing in on 82. Which is a high for the move. I do believe that we will be over $100 a barrel in oil relatively soon. You got silver is up better than 60 cents per ounce today, and the dollar is broadly lower across the board. Now, maybe the reason that the dollar is so weak and gold is so strong, maybe people are starting to appreciate just how completely clueless our Fed chairman Ben Bernanke actually is. Either he's clueless or he's just a liar, but either way, I don't think it creates a lot of confidence in our economy or in our country. Ben Bernanke over the weekend gave a speech in which he once again absolved the Federal Reserve for any role in creating a housing bubble. Unbelievable. Now, of course, remember, Ben Bernanke is one of the people who was denying that there was a housing bubble. He was going on national television saying that there was no real estate bubble, that real estate prices would not fall, that real estate prices reflected solid economic fundamentals. So here he was completely clueless. He was the chairman of the Federal Reserve and didn't even see a real estate bubble, right? And now he's trying to explain why it happened. And of course, he's saying that none of it was the fault of the Fed. But it's very interesting. If you look at his speech or read the text of his speech, he says that low interest rates had nothing to do with the housing bubble. Well, then why does Ben Bernanke think there was a housing bubble? Well, he's blaming it on the proliferation of adjustable rate mortgages and interest-only mortgages. That's why he thinks there was a housing bubble, because too many people were using adjustable rate mortgages and interest-only mortgages. Well, why does Ben Bernanke think that that happened? The reason that so many people were using those mortgages was because interest rates were so low. If the Federal Reserve hadn't put in short-term interest rates at 1%, people wouldn't have been using ARMs. People wouldn't have used interest-only mortgages. The reason they did was because the interest rates were so low. Look, I mean, this was obvious. I wrote an op-ed in 2004, which I submitted to the Orange County Register, which they ran, and which is also on my website at europac.net. You can look at it. It's in the archives. It's dated May 7th, 2004. But let me read the first paragraph of that op-ed. Contrary to popular rhetoric, given today's interest rate environment, there are no circumstances for which home buyers should choose adjustable rate mortgages. That so many are currently opting for ARMs reflects a level of real estate speculation unparalleled in American history. Home buyers have been lured into this foolish choice by real estate and mortgage brokers eager to earn commissions, their own avarice in pursuit of easy riches, and by a Fed chairman desperate to keep the real estate bubble inflated. Unfortunately, the longer the Fed remains patient with regard to raising short-term interest rates to appropriate levels, the more homeowners that will be lured into the ARM time bomb. Now, there you have it. I wrote in 2004 that the reason so many people were selecting ARMs was because the Fed had short-term interest rates artificially low. And I pointed out that the longer it took the Fed to raise rates, the more people would be sucked into the tender trap of adjustable rate mortgages. So here you have Ben Bernanke pointing out that the housing bubble was caused by an excessive use of adjustable rate mortgages without understanding that the only reason that there was such widespread use of these products was because the Fed had interest rates so low. If interest rates weren't so low, there wouldn't have been a big difference between an ARM and a 30-year fixed. The reason that there was such a huge difference was because of the low interest rates. And of course, what Ben Bernanke also conveniently leaves out of his speech is that Alan Greenspan, while he was Fed chairman, in congressional testimony, actually recommended and praised the use of adjustable rate mortgages. He went out of his way to say that homeowners were saving money, that they were wasting money on traditional mortgages, and that adjustable rate mortgages represented a good choice, a smart choice. I remember when I first heard Alan Greenspan make those remarks, I almost fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe that he was saying it. I wrote a commentary specifically criticizing Alan Greenspan for praising the use of adjustable rate mortgages. And it was also, he was talking about the fact that rates were going to be going up, that he was going to be raising interest rates. Knowing that interest rates were going to go up, how can he, as Fed chairman, advise people to take on adjustable rate mortgages, knowing that he's going to have to raise interest rates? So not only did a Federal Reserve policy make possible the proliferation of ARMs and interest-only mortgages, which according to Ben Bernanke were the reason that we had a housing bubble, but the Federal Reserve chairman himself was praising people for actually using these things. Now, another reason that ARMs became so widespread was because Freddie and Fannie were guaranteeing them. But Freddie and Fannie were guaranteeing ARMs based on the initial payments, based on the teaser rates, based on where the ARMs started. They didn't give any consideration to how high the rates could ultimately adjust. They were simply focusing on the ability of the borrower to afford the initial payment. And the reason the borrower could afford the initial payment was because the Federal Reserve had interest rates so low. If it wasn't for this combination of low interest rates by the Fed and guaranteed mortgages by Fannie and Freddie, we never could have had a housing bubble. The whole thing would have been impossible. The reason that I was able to predict a housing bubble when Ben Bernanke said it didn't exist was because I understood how the Fed's low interest rates were creating a bubble, how they were creating mortgage products that seemed affordable in the short run, but weren't, that were only affordable because of the artificially low and temporarily low interest rates that were being supplied by the Federal Reserve. And the amazing thing is that not only didn't Ben Bernanke realize this at the time, but even with the benefit of hindsight, he still doesn't understand the damage that low interest rates did to the economy and how low interest rates led to the housing bubble. Well, if he didn't understand the damage of a 1% Fed funds rate, obviously he's clueless about all the damage he's doing now with a 0% Fed funds rate. Because the economic crisis that the Fed is in the process of creating, the currency crisis that's going to hit, is going to be far worse than the financial crisis or the housing bubble that was a function of the low interest rates of the past. Because Ben Bernanke has learned nothing from his mistakes. And I'm sure that foreign creditors around the world who are listening to these remarks are amazed at how clueless our Fed chairman remains. And it obviously doesn't inspire any confidence in our currency or in our financial markets or in our bond markets. Anyway, that's it for today. Take care, everybody.